Alright, what's up, guys? This is Corey with the Dirt City Gym, and today I'm with y'all. I just wanted to do a little discussion over Dallas Regionals. So I was at Dallas this past weekend, and it was my first major tournament. I've only been playing Pokemon trading card game since like April or Mayish, around Fates Collide pre-release is my first getting back into it. So whenever that was the start of getting back into the game. So yeah, Dallas was my first opportunity to get to like a big tournament of regionals and all that. All in all, it was a really fun experience. I ended up going 3-4 and dropping. Wasn't much point. I felt like keeping going at that point. All in all, I don't think it was a bad experience for me. I started off pretty well, and just kind of went downhill kind of as the day went on for various reasons. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of get into my thought process going into Dallas, what I played, what I saw, all that good stuff. So anyway, just kind of the thought process going into Dallas. I was expecting, it's typical fashion for this meta at this point, just seeing a lot of Eeveelow Garb because it's kind of been everywhere. It's won every regional at this point. So initially, probably about a month before the tournament, is when I really started like grinding and testing and everything like that. And I wanted to test a little bit of everything. Initially, I was gonna go with a Raikou Electro deck. I felt like, with all the Yveltal, that she gave me a pretty good shot. So I tested that pretty well, pretty regularly, but I just wasn't happy with what I was getting in that Yveltal matchup. I could get hot early, but then usually Yveltal could come back at the end and get me. So that was a little aggravating. So I dropped that. Then moved on, and I wanted to test Rainbow Road, which is a deck I've been playing a little bit off and on for the last couple months. A couple various different lists. I settled on a EX heavy list with Galvantula, just kind of get a little bit of best of both worlds with Parallel City in it as well, particularly for the mirror and to keep them from parallel citying me. So that was the next deck I tested a little bit, which I was hot on for a little bit. I took it to a league challenge, which you can see that round one of that video here on the YouTube channel, just to prep that out. And I had a horrible day with it. It was super inconsistent, which is kind of the inherent fears of that deck or decks that are similar to it. That it can do really well in testing and then shit on itself. And I was too worried about it shitting on me, so I just went away from Rainbow Road. In hindsight, might have been okay to stick with it in case it had gone well. What ended up playing out at the tournament, Rainbow Road might have had a pretty good matchups with, but all in all, I just was too worried for my first tournament taking something inconsistent and then hating myself with it afterwards because I took an inconsistent deck. So yeah. So the next up, I started testing Eeveeloutions Garb myself. It's a deck I'm pretty familiar with and I'm pretty comfortable with. I've played different variations of Eeveeloutions, whether extended or expanded. And it was one of those decks for a little bit. I was pretty sure that was the deck I was going to go with. I was pretty confident in it, still confident in that deck, and running that deck personally. But about a week and a half before the tournament, I started to get a little bit of fear that everybody was going to start countering it. Like, this was going to be the tournament where it's just going to be all the Eeveeloutions hate. And so for that, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to pull away and start testing other things just in case. And at that point, I settled on what I thought was going to be my final deck, which was going to be Darkrai Giratina, which is another deck that's like my comfort deck. Like, if I need to go back to a deck, that's the deck I'm going to go to, is Darkrai Giratina. I know the matchup super well against just about everything. I've tested it, I've played it. I won a league challenge with it this season, and all that good stuff. So up until about 2 days before the tournament, that was going to be my deck. I was going to play Darkrai. Darkrai Giratina with Salamence. I really felt like that was probably a good play. Still feel like it probably would have been a good play. If I had to have a hindsight in the tournament, it's not playing Darkrai. I feel like I probably would have done a little bit better. But I ended up settling, like I said, 2 days before on Mewtwo. Just having some conversations with a couple of other players I test with and I trust. They were sitting pretty high on Mewtwo as well. I came to the conclusion of running a Mewtwo Zipstrika deck. thinking that would give me my best bet against Eeveeloutions. Still at the time thinking Eeveeloutions was going to be the most common deck I'd run into. And then Mewtwo in and of itself would have the best chance against the field of whatever else was there. I was expecting to see a lot of Raikou, a lot of Jolteon, and a lot of like Zipstrika Bees and things like that. Ultimately, I did not see much of any of those. I saw a bunch of Mewtwo. Everyone was running Mewtwo. It was either Mewtwo or Volcanion. I saw a ton of Volcanion. I didn't see Greninja. I played one Yveltal Garb deck, which is a little bit different of a Yveltal list. And even in the tables around me, I didn't see very much Yveltal. And for majority of the day, I mean, I was never at the bottom tables. I was always like mid tier. At one point, I was 2-1, then I was 3-2, and 3-3. So I was never really below the medium tables. So I just never really saw a lot of Yveltal. I saw a ton of Mewtwo. Mewtwo was everywhere. I played 2 Mewtwo mirrors as well. So yeah, my list was a Yveltal, Zipstrika, Garbodor. I mean, not Yveltal. Mewtwo, Zipstrika, Garbodor. Pretty kind of standard list, except with the Zebras, which Mewtwo was the deck that I ran at the very beginning of the season, right after rotation. With all the Rayquaza hype initially going into the year, so I was comfortable with the deck. It wasn't like anything I didn't know how to run or anything like that, so I felt fine with it. And the deck as a whole on the day was never really inconsistent. I had one matchup later in the day where I didn't draw necessarily great, and just fatigue and everything else was kind of sitting in at that point. So all those factors kind of settled in for that match. But as a whole, the deck was fine. I don't regret playing Mewtwo at all. Obviously, going in, like I said, I expected to see a lot of Yveltal. I did not see a lot of Yveltal. I did really not even see a lot of matchups where Garbodor was even necessary for me personally. So it's easy to say, oh man, I should have taken Garb out, or I should have taken Zebra out. But Zebstrika really came clutch in several matchups for me, which I'll get into a little bit when I go into those. But yeah, I was happy with my list. Relatively comfortable going into the day, and even how the matchups turned out. There wasn't anything where I was just like, oh man, I was overwhelmed, or I made a lot of major misplays or anything like that. Just things just kind of went how they went, and I'm totally fine with that. So anyway, yeah. So like I said, I was expecting a lot of Yveltal. Did not see a lot. Yveltal Garb did not make top 8. It was a lot of Mega Gardy and Mega Mewtwo. So again, Mega Mewtwo wasn't really a bad choice in my mind. So yeah, okay, so getting into my rounds. So first round, I ended up playing the Mega Mewtwo Mirror, which was more similar to Mirror to mine because he was also running Zepstrika, but he was not running Garbodor, and I was playing one of my local guys here from Lubbock, so that kind of sucked that both of our first big tournaments we ended up playing each other, but he ended up doing better than I did, so great job, Justin. But so yeah, I took round 1. He did not draw very well. He ended up with Shaman and Blitzel, I think, both games as his first 2. I think he started with a Shaman. If not both of them, I know at least the first game he started with his Shaman. But anyway, so going on to the second round, 1-0, I run into Plume Box, which I don't necessarily think is a bad matchup for Mewtwo. It's definitely manageable. It's just a matchup I don't personally like running into. I don't think anyone really likes playing against Plume Box. It's just not super fun, especially when they get Violet Plume going every game, turn 1 to turn 2. So yeah, game 1, he goes first, gives a Vileplume up, and I don't get a lot going initially early, but he can't do a whole lot to me. I maneuver around a bit. We end up getting that point where we're both stalling each other out, and my win condition at that point was like, okay, he's got way less cards in his deck than I do, so I just start stalling. I start shaming or Lysandering things up, retreating into other things, retreating back into things, and all that kind of good stuff, which ended up being fine. It came to him drawing his last card, which ended up being a Rainbow Energy, which is what he needed to attach to a Jolteon so he could Lysander up a Shaman and knock it out to take his last 2 prizes. But, had that have been something else, or just a little bit different situation. Earlier, I parallel citied, and instead of dropping a Hoopa, I dropped a Shaman, so I could retreat a little easier, was my mindset at the time, which again, going into it, it still was probably the better play to keep the Shaman and drop the Hoopa, but had I kept the Hoopa, I would have won that game. But anyway, going to game 2, I go first. I get my board set up pretty well. Turn 1, Pass into turn 2, he gets Plume up again, which sucks. But again, my board was up pretty well, so I ended up taking that game in 6 or 7 turns. He didn't get a lot going on outside of getting Plume set up, so that one was fine. Going into game 3, he goes first. He gets Plume back up again. This game was okay. We ended up taking this game to time. And on the last turn of time, he ends up able to mill me out with Bunnelby. Had I been able to keep one more card in my deck, we would have drew out the match. So, is what it is. Again, not dishappy with that at all. It is what it is on that one. Going into round 3, I'm 1-1. I play another Plume box. Just for clarification, the first Plume box was running Floatstone, and it was running more like tech cards with Bunnelby and like Salamence and things like that. Whereas my round 3 Plume box was the Manaphy list. Game 1, he goes first, gets up Plume. I end up scooping about 2 turns later. I just draw into nothing but like Via Seekers and things like that. No draw supporters, so I scoop that one. Game 2, I go first, and I just get rolling super quickly. Make sure I get the Trubbish out turn 1, get the Floatstone on it, get Garbodor going, and just sweep. Game 3, similar situation. He goes first. He gets Plume up, which sucks. But I'm able to manage it a little bit better. I draw better. And I get to a situation probably about turn 4, where either I don't think I had revealed it earlier in the matchup, but he dropped his hand down to 3, overextending a little bit, and I'm able to delinquent him down to nothing, and he has no energy on the field. So at that point, I have a Mewtwo set up. He's got like a Regice and a Glaceon and a Vileplume, and I drop the delinquent and just kind of go from there. He can never get caught back up. It's kind of the MVP on the delinquent right there. So anyway, I win that match. I'm 2-1. Then I go into the next round. I play against my first Yveltal Garb. And like I said, this Yveltal list was a little differently. It ran Zipstrika, as well as running at least 3 Fright Knight. I feel like it might have been 4 Fright Knight. I know at one point he had 3 powered up Fright Knights on the bench, which another reason I was confident in playing Mewtwo going into the day was a lot of the buzz with the Yveltal Garb lists were dropping their Fright Knight counts, either down to 1 or none, and I felt super confident in that aspect. So if I had played against one of those lists, I would have felt a little bit better. But again, he was running 3 Fright Knight. He won both games. They were both super close. Came down to the last prizes, both games. It was a pretty good matchup, but just couldn't get past the Fright Knights, man. Then going into round 5, so I'm 2-2. Sitting fine. I'm comfortable. So I play up against a really good player. I'm not going to drop names, but he has won a regionals. I will put that in this season. He was playing a super interesting list. And yeah, it was a really good game. I took it in 2. The deck he was playing, I feel like Mewtwo has a pretty good matchup with. In that particular matchup, Zebstrika came in really clutch against Shamans and other things like that. So I was pretty happy with that. So that was pretty cool. That was my accomplishment for the weekend, is being able to win that matchup versus that particular player. So yeah, going into the next round, I am 3-2, which kind of sucks. Especially being my first tournament, I didn't quite know what to expect in terms of that, but I'm 3-2 going into round 6, and I'm just mentally and physically exhausted. Like, I just don't have a lot going left upstairs, so I've got like a crazy headache and everything like that. Not an excuse, but learning to manage that kind of stuff going into a tournament is something I definitely need to get a better grasp on. So yeah, going in round 6, I play another Mega Mewtwo Mirror. This one was the Lightning Mewtwo deck that was running Jolteon and Zebras. Round 1, we just kind of trade back Mewtwo shots, and he's able to get over me pretty quickly. Then game 2, I literally have to end 6 consecutive times before I finally see a Mewtwo. I'm able to stall out a little bit until I can get going. Finally, get a Mewtwo, get a Mega Mewtwo going, and things like that. And this is where my only misplay, really heavy misplay that I can recall of the day, comes up. He has a Mega Mewtwo active with only 2 or 3 energy. I can't remember. Earlier in the match, I had used Trubbish to Acid Spray in an attempt to eliminate the energy, but hitting for weakness, it deals 20 damage, which ended up becoming significantly. So later, I get my Mewtwo going, I attach my DCE, and I'm thinking, okay, I gotta hit this Max Elixir, or not Max Elixir, I have to hit the Mega Turbo in order to get this knockout. Forgetting and not realizing he had already had 20 damage on him, so that DCE was enough. So I dig for a Mega Turbo, can't find it. I know he's gonna knock me out if I stay in this active, so I retreat and bring something else up. And it's kind of the rest of that matchup goes. I could never catch up at that point. But anyway, so that was round 6. I'm 3-3. Still feel fine about my day. I'm still not necessarily feeling great, like physically and mentally. Like I was exhausted. Next round, I play a Vespiquen Zebstrika deck. Round 1, I get it pretty quickly. I sweep that one pretty quick. He scoops. I had like 3 Mega Mewtwo's going, powered up and everything like that. Game 2, my prizes weren't great, so I don't get set up very quickly, and he gets like 18 Pokemon in the discard by like turn 3. So just not a lot of, even I can take my one-shots, and he's still getting me pretty quickly. And then game 3, it goes a little long. We get down to we get down to the wire where he's got like 2 or 3 cards left in his deck. But at that point, he's got enough where he can one-shot Mega Mewtwo. So there's just not, I could not get much going on that one. So he gets that one in 3. And at this point, like I said, I knew the likelihood of me, I already knew I'm out of day 2. Going down to 3-3, I was already pretty much eliminating myself in my head going into day 2, which I'm fine with. At that point, I was just playing, potentially try to get top 64, get some CP. But after going 3-4, I was like, the chances of me getting points at this point are not very high. I'm super hungry. I'm tired. It's New Year's. I wanted to go drink, so I dropped. That was it. I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with my experience. I learned a lot. I played well, relatively speaking, as far as I feel like. I never felt like I was overmatched or I just was in over my head or anything like that. I felt comfortable in all my matchups. I knew what to do in all of my matchups. It was never a question of knowing how to play the cards correctly. It was just getting what I needed when I needed it. So yeah, all in all, I think it was a great experience. 10 out of 10, I'd run Mewtwo again. That was not a problem. I don't think Mewtwo is the problem. In hindsight, I might veer away from the damage change Mewtwo. It never really came up significantly. I could see considering running extra parallel cities or just some extra cards, and that fairy Mewtwo list that's been floating around is a little interesting, and might have came in a little bit better with the fairy drops and good stuff like that. So all these things to kind of keep in mind moving forward, but all in all, it was a pretty good experience. I don't know if I'll be able to profile the deck list or not. I don't have all the Mewtwo's on PTCGO, so probably won't do a profile on the list. But again, just a pretty standard Mewtwo Garbodor list with his Zebstrika. I mean, it's one of the lists that was up around the beginning of the season when Rayquaza was huge. So that was just kind of my default too. But yeah, other than that, that is all I've got for you guys. So I will see y'all next time.